All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the first annual, well, maybe annual, we'll see about that, Draugr OS Assistant Core Project Manager interviews and elections. Um, for those of you who don't know, although I'm sure most of you do know who I am at this point, my name is Thomas. You'll see me as Batcastle, both here in the Discord server and on our Telegram group and everywhere else on the internet. I'm the lead developer and founder of Draugr OS, and I'm also the core project manager. So, whoever we elect tonight is going to be my right-hand man or woman, which both of our candidates tonight are guys, so right-hand man. A few notes to get started for the two people who will be joining. Please keep it safe for work, as this is a public stage. And also, please follow the Draugr OS community guidelines. Thankfully, both of our candidates tonight are really great guys. I've known them both for at least a few months. One of them I've known for several years. And that will not be an issue, I'm sure, but also please keep it civil in chat. So, without further ado, we're going to bring our first person or first candidate on. And alrighty, I have sent les invites. Hello there, Sinless.
Hello. I guess that means I should put down Animal Crossing.
I am hearing nothing.
You're hearing nothing. Okay.
Canst thou hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wait. Hang on.
Can you hear me?
I have headphones off. My bad. Give me one. Alright, I should be able to hear you. There we go. Now I can hear. Oops. Yes, I can. Yeah, it is. Alright, so, Sinless, how you doing tonight? I am great. So, I've got a few questions that I'm going to ask just to get the community to know you a little bit better and to get to know you as a leader and a developer and all that. Feel free to, elaborate on your questions as much as you want. We have got all the time of the world, at least on my end. So let's start with something I'm sure everyone in the Linux community likes to learn about each other. How did you get started with Linux? All right. Well, speaking of Draugr OS, how did you get started with Draugr OS? Okay, yeah. Um, and you have, I noticed, been you've been contributing a lot. Less so lately, of course, because you've been working on a certification. I know. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Okay. Okay. Um, right, and good luck with that. Your skills have already been of huge help to us here at Draugr OS, and I'm sure with that certification, they're going to be even more help once you complete that test. So, what are some issues with you with Draugr OS now? Not just on the software side, but also maybe on the administrative side. Do you see any issues with the way we run our community? Do you see any issues with the way we handle other issues, things like that? Yeah, we have some other people in the community who like to break things. One of them is listening in right now, of course, and we always like to poke fun at him. um, so, do you want to talk a little bit more about how you plan to address those issues in the role of the assistant core project manager? I can definitely agree with that because I remember from the early years of Draugr OS that basically no one was submitting any issue reports at all. Um, and granted, I never heard about anybody using Draugr OS in those early years. So, at that time, there could have been no one using it. But we've definitely grown a lot in recent months. Yeah, I agree. Um, and of course, the more people that use the OS, the more issues that we'll find, both in the software and in the administrative side of things. Um, you were going to say something? Yeah, definitely. So, moving back a little bit more towards that administrative side of things, I know you mentioned deployments, and I know we've talked a few times about um, your involvement in the military, and military tend to give people leadership skills. So, can you talk about what sort of leadership experience you have? Not. Yeah. All right. So here's a good question. Do you actually think you're a good fit for this position? Why or why not? Okay. Okay. All right. So, last question from me before we open this up to the rest of the community. If you get this position, do you have any sort of plans of your own that you want to try and complete while you're in office? Okay, and you've already been using some of those skills because I know you created a fuzzer for the desktop interface with the. I'm trying to think of how to describe it for those who may not be familiar with what we're talking about because I know you know what I'm talking about. Right. So basically, you're just throwing as much random data as possible at some sort of input field to try and break it intentionally. Okay. So, and all right. At this point, we're going to open up questions to the community. If anybody has any questions, just drop them in chat. We're looking at that right now, actually. And again, please keep it safe for work and following the Draugr OS community guidelines, because this is being streamed to YouTube. So if anybody has any questions, please let us know. And if you don't have any questions, drop that in chat as well. And I'm also going to be checking the YouTube chat to see if anybody there has any questions. So yeah, we are open now for questions from the community. I would greatly appreciate that, because I personally have been working on getting the software side of Atala finally going, because that's been behind by a lot. It will end up going towards being used towards more Draugr OS stuff, but at some point, the goal is that the community takes over the project entirely, and I sit back and work on one or two things at a time, and I have no obligation to actually be here. And if I were to suddenly drop off the face of the earth, y'all can go on your merry way without me if need be, which is why we're doing all of this. Because basically, if I were to be hit by a bus today or tomorrow, whoever is in the ACPM position would end up running Draugr OS for a couple weeks until our core contributor team, or the CCT, can go through the exercise of replacing me, whether that be with who is the ACPM at the time or somebody else, who knows, but that's the goal behind it. Because as people are well aware once you get older, life is not infinite. You will die at some point, and you got to be prepared for that. Alright. Yes, we have. If you go to draughros.org/go/ and I'm going to actually have to look up that last little bit. Let's see. /go/ policies and operations manual. No spaces. Replace those spaces with the hyphens. And you get everything. All on one page. It's something like a 25 to 30 minute read if you decide to read the whole thing, and it is a living document. I actually have at least one thing I need to pop in there that I keep forgetting about, so there's that. But yes, thank you for popping that in there, Sinless. Well, we got somebody typing. Alright. So, I'm going to give them 2 more minutes until... okay. So, Ratfink has a good question for Sunless. How would you enforce community guidelines? Okay, well, Right. Which, as a CCT member or as the ACPM, you will be expected to, handle some of that moderation work if our dedicated moderators aren't in the server or if I'm not in the server. This next one, I'm just gonna. Okay, how would you effectively keep the community running if I, Mr. Batcastle, were to get murdered by Arch Linux devs? I don't think the Arch Linux devs hate me that much. I mean, we run Draugr, by the way. We kind of steal their meme, but, you know. Yeah, that is actually a legitimate concern at times. Yeah, more or less. Which, as anybody who has had a family member pass away in recent times will know, and has tried to do this, it is a pain to get access to a person's online accounts after they've been deceased. Some companies will respond to an email and help you out. Other companies will legitimately just take your email and send it to the trash. So we will have methods in place so that whoever is the ACPM has access to the accounts necessary in order to keep the community running. So for instance, in GitHub, there is a setting where I can actually say, if I were to pass away and GitHub gets notification of it, this is who takes control of the Draugr OS organization. And that's a my end sort of thing, not on the ACPM sort of thing. Because by default, that would go to the ACPM, and then the ACPM, if they don't get elected to be the permanent CPM, they would, from there, pass it on to whoever does get elected. And we have protocols in place for if they go rogue and refuse to pass that on and such. So next question, how do you plan to grow Draugr OS and its community? Yeah, it does. But I do want to point out that there are other ways to grow the community that does not rely on going through those policies. So, for instance, you mentioned earlier that you got involved in Draugr OS because I did an interview with Linux for Everyone. There is nothing in our policies or operations manual that says you can't go and do an interview as a CCT member or the ACPM of Draugr OS. If somebody were to come to you asking to do an interview, if you want to, you can totally go do that interview. That being said, there are policies and protocols in place for how you are expected to behave and present yourself and present Draugr OS. So you would be expected to follow that in that situation, but if you want to, you can totally go do that interview. I would like it if you at least let me know that you're doing this, so I'm not blindsided by oh, hey, one of our contributors did this and I had no idea. Okay, it's cool, but wish I'd known. So you can totally do stuff like that, and that'll definitely help grow the community. And that's just one example of stuff that you can do. So, all right. Has anybody else got any questions? Alrighty. So, Sinless, thank you for joining me. I greatly appreciate you running for ACPM, because you were kind of voluntold. And you haven't backed down from the fight at all. Yeah. If you want to say any quick last words, this is your moment. Okie dokie. Well, at that, thank you, Sinless, again for joining me. And I'm gonna boot you now. So no hard feelings. Alright, thank you again, bud. Alrighty. So during this, I have actually been in contact with our other contestant, or candidate, sorry. His name is Logan L. Johnson, and unfortunately, he is not going to be able to do a text chat with us today, or a voice chat with us today, because unfortunately he is at work. So I've sent the same questions that I asked Sinless to Logan, and he is going to answer them as quickly as possible. And what I get in the next few minutes, I will read to you guys to let you know what he is saying. But other than that, he will not be able to join us on the text or on the voice chat right now. I'll give you guys a little bit of background info on him, though, because I actually have known him for several years. So I don't know how Logan got involved in Linux, but I do know he started in Draugr OS because he was sort of voluntold. He and I went to high school together, and I brought him one of the early internal builds of Draugr OS, and he looked it over, and we jokingly refer to him as the to keep it family friendly, let's call it the aesthetics Nazi. How about that? And so he looked it over. He helped me get Draugr OS set up as much as possible with that, and then from there he helped me get the website looking good, and it just grew from there. And now he is currently hosting the website. He got the website looking the way you see it now. He hops in and helps get the website going, or fixed, or adding new features however needed. And he also got the desktop of Draugr OS looking the way it does for Draugr OS 7.5.1. So he started to respond here. He said he started using Linux in 2015 when exploring alternative operating systems. I can tell you right now, he just recently actually switched full-time to Linux. He does, in fact, use Adobe products, and we finally got Adobe running in Wine for him, so he went and switched full-time to Linux here recently. So that is an interesting fact about him. He's currently working on the second question, so while he's doing that, I'll let him know he can skip 2. Alright. So, lately he's also been working with, he's being kind of a devil's advocate lately, which is good. We need a devil's advocate, in all honesty. We need somebody who is willing to ask the hard questions, to present alternative viewpoints, because if you ask me, if you don't have those alternative viewpoints, then you can have things going very far off in left field and straying from what you really want to do by not considering every possible scenario. It does have its issues, of course. It causes a lot of arguing and things like that. But as long as you can keep it civil, it can actually help grow the community. Up. Alright. So, while we're waiting on Logan to answer the next question, does anybody have any questions for me, or for like what the CCT is or things like that? And if you do, just use the in-audience request to speak function, and I will let you pop in and ask it. While we're waiting on that, he did answer the next question. So the question is, what are some issues you see with Draugr OS now? And he thinks Draugr OS is constantly improving and has come a long way from its inception. And he thinks we need to make we need to focus on making Draugr OS more user-friendly and widely available. I know, Sinless, you talked about making Draugr OS more user-friendly as well, but you looked at it from a more code perspective, whereas I know he's looking at it from a more UI UX perspective, which there's nothing wrong with either perspective, if you ask me. They're both great ways to approach it. Alright. So yeah, if anybody has any questions for me about what the CCT is, or what the ACPM does, or what the CPM does, or what all of those things stand for, there should be a request to speak function. If you just right click, or at the bottom there is a little hand button thing. You might be able to use that to request, because I have not been on the listening end of this before, and we're still trying to figure it out. Ah, someone has added me. Alright, so that's a great question. Have I had thoughts about fully or partially leaving Draugr OS's community and or its development? I'll be honest with you guys. There have been times I've thought about it. I have thought about it several times because Draugr OS takes up a lot of my free time. And not being able to have as much fun and not being able to have as active of a social life and things like that, they've made me seriously question sometimes whether I actually want to be in this leadership position. The reason I stay is because up until recently, at least, there was no one that I felt could actually take on this position and was willing to put in as much time as I do. Because if you notice, I am in the Discord server, I am in the Telegram group every day, all day. And that's always true. If I'm not in the server, I am probably asleep. in all honesty. Or I am somewhere where I don't have internet access. The other reasons I haven't left yet is because I love writing software. And being able to do that can be difficult if you don't have a platform that you can distribute that on. Most developers distribute their software to Windows or to Mac OS. And that's great and all, but when you're a single person, a single developer, if you don't have a platform or some way to publicly, spread the word about your code and get people to try it, it's not going to be used that much. And you want people to use your code. So having Draugr OS makes it so that all the other stuff that I write has a platform. And I can code for that platform and know, based on testing it on my own computer, because I'm running Draugr OS right now. I can just test it on here, and if it runs on my computer, I know there's a decent chance of it running on everybody else's computer who is running Draugr OS. At least as far as the software will work. Because there's nothing special about my computer versus everyone else's, other than I have the development repositories enabled. And some of you, I know, also have those repositories enabled. So if it doesn't work on my system, or if it doesn't work on everybody else's system, it'll still probably work on the people who have the dev repos enabled. So Logan has asked another question, or answered another question. In response to what the issues he sees with Draugr OS was, he was asked, how do you plan to address the issues that you see? He says he plans to continue improving the website and online resources, making essential knowledge readily available, as well as continuing to focus on user experience, ease of use, whilst upholding user privacy and user choice as fundamentally important to the project. He's been a leading contributor of Draugr OS since 2018, and he has led a nonprofit of his own, Saigo Network, since 2017. Additionally, he has briefly led a local Linux users group along with a colleague for roughly a year. So that was all his leadership experience. So there's all that. Does anybody else have any other questions for me? Or the Chloris, do you think I answered your question effectively? Or should I elaborate on some more? And I hope I pronounced your username correctly, by the way. So let me know about that. In the meantime, I do want to let everybody know that we have been working on the software side of Vitala. If you don't know what Vitala is a game console that we've been working on for a while now. So we've been working on the software side of that. So the Chloris asked further, now that the position could be filled, do I plan on leaving at any time soon? No, I still don't intend to leave anytime soon. Now that I have more contributors helping me out, I don't intend to leave yet. Because as I've had more and more people helping me out, it has made my life significantly easier, and I am far less stressed now than when I was running the project myself and had basically no contributors. I don't intend to leave anytime soon. It's just being prepared in case I do one day decide to leave, or in case I die or something like that. Ratfink also asked, would the same protocol be in place if I were knocked into a coma by Pop! OS devs? Not Jed, just in a coma. That's a great question. So, for starters, I'm actually good friends with the dude who works on Pop! OS, so I don't think this is going to happen. We actually don't really have any protocol specifically for if I'm temporarily incapacitated. What would be expected then, I believe, would be whoever is the ACPM would at that point take over temporarily. I would say if I have not come out of that coma in about 2 to 4 weeks, they would probably start considering replacing me at that point, because comas can last for years, of course, and we don't want that temporary, you know, we don't want that temporary ACPMs in place for forever. So I think a good 2 to 4 week time period of just waiting to see what happens, and if I don't come out of the coma by that point, then replace me. If I do, then we go back to the way I was, or the way we are. So we got a couple more responses from Logan. So the number 6 question was, do you think you would be a good fit for this position for ACPM? Why or why not? He definitely thinks he would be a good fit for ACPM. Otherwise, he wouldn't be running, of course. As he's been carrying out leadership functions for Jogger West Development for some time now. And then number 7 is if he gets that position,